Have you ever wondered where the term CX came from?
At our first meeting for the Customer Experience Professionals Association, I emphasized that we have to call customer experience CX. We have to use some common vocabulary.
How we got from CRM to customer experience on this episode of the CX Leader Podcast.
The CX Leader Podcast with Steve Walker is produced by Walker, a business consulting firm that helps our clients unlock the potential of their customer experiences by placing the customer at the heart of all their business decisions. You can find out more at walkerinfo.com.
Hello, I'm Pat Gibbons, Senior Vice President and Principal at Walker, and today I'm filling in for Steve Walker as the guest host of the CX Leader Podcast. Thank you for listening. On the CX Leader Podcast, we explore the topics and themes to help leaders like you leverage all the benefits of customer experience and help your customers and prospects want to do more business with you. In this episode, we're continuing our tour into the minds of CX luminaries. Those are the customer experience experts that have a passion for helping companies and organizations realize the potential in understanding their customers' interactions with their business and helping those companies find ways to act on those insights. Now, many of you know Bruce Temkin as the founder and managing partner of the Temkin Group, a CX research, consulting, and training firm. He's also the founder of the Customer Experience Professionals Association. You may know him for that as well. What you may or may not know is that he was recently named the head of the Qualtrics XM Institute, which seeks to create a premier center for experience management. Bruce is joining us today via Zoom. Bruce, welcome to the CX Leader Podcast.
Thanks, Pat. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you as well. And you know, I was thinking today, you and I go a ways back because I remember visiting you when you were at analyst firm. And, you know, we were talking about Walker and what we do, and I had to endure your probing questions and all that sort of thing. But one thing I don't know is how you got into this. And I'll give you a little side note. You and I both author articles for CRM Magazine. And I'm working on one right now that is talking about how people landed in CX. And I thought, you know, I don't know how Bruce landed in CX. So maybe you can start there, tell us how you got into CX, and give us a little bit of your path leading up to some of the things you're doing today.
Yeah. I always don't quite know how to answer that question, but I'll go all the way back and then accelerate through, right? I sometimes say that I started my career building submarine missile systems, and I end up ending my career helping companies deliver fantastic experiences. And somewhere in the middle, I shifted.
Okay. I'm anxious to hear how that happened.
I'm an engineer by training, and I think that plays through everything that I do. And so early in my career, it was a lot around designing systems for, like I said, the military, the Navy. Got my MBA, and then things shifted. After my MBA, I ended up being involved in a lot of cross-functional processes. I worked for GE and led some of their first Six Sigma programs, where we were re-engineering customer-facing processes and interactions. I led a lot of the workout sessions where we recrafted how General Electric businesses operated. And I think that really sparked in me the desire to look at how organizations operate and how the things that happen inside of organizations affect the customers outside of the organization. So then I ended up at Forrester Research. And I was there for 12 years. And I would say for most of that, what I worked on could be classified as customer experience. I led the B2B team, but even in B2B, I was looking at how distribution channels and supply chains ultimately affect customers. I led the financial services sector. I led the CRM practice, and then I led the customer experience practice. And one of the things when I was leading the customer experience practice there, it was mostly focused on user experience and design. And I started to push the practice to look not only at one channel, but look at multiple channels and look at the customer journey as they go across channels, and introduce the notion of voice of the customer programs and insights. And that led to my sort of passion around helping organizations improve customer experience. Because what I realized, especially I was driving a very successful business inside of Forrester around 2008 when there was a recession, and recognized that even in a recession, or maybe even more so in a recession, organizations that focus on their customers will succeed. And so Temkin Group was created because I saw that there was an opportunity to really help companies in a more dramatic way, and based on our sort of ongoing belief that how you operate internally really is what drives how you treat customers externally. Temkin Group was formed in that capacity in 2010. Shortly after that, we created the CXPA because what I'd recognized was that there was an opportunity for professionals in the field to learn from each other and not to have to repeat all of the same problems that they did, because I had lived through the CRM world, and it actually helped large organizations improve how they deployed CRM. And the thing I recognized was without a strong practitioner focus, without practitioners having a really strong point of view, that the technology providers ended up making CRM a technology play. And there's nothing wrong with technology, but if it's just a technology, then you don't actually realize the business benefits that you need. So created the CRM to have practitioners have a strong voice in their future and to establish customer experience as a real professional practice. And really that's sort of what I've been doing for the last 8 or 10 years, which is really helping the professional side of customer experience and now the professional side of experience management, which I think is a larger endeavor, but helping the professionals in the field succeed at driving their organizations to be better at the experiences they create and deliver.
No, you touched on so many things there because as you spoke, it reminded me how much has changed in the 20 years I've been in it as well. When you started out, I mean, CX or customer experience really wasn't even a term. And you probably had something to do with that even when the association formed, because wasn't part of the initiative in establishing it as a legitimate profession that we had to kind of talk the same language, right? Was that some of the discussions you had when you were starting it out?
Yes. So I go back to a report I wrote in 2002 called Forget CRM, Focus on Customer Experience, which I wouldn't guess that in 2002 that was the first time that anyone used customer experience, but I think that was the first seminal report on customer experience that was injecting the idea of customer experience as a professional discipline. And so pushing that a lot. So I think that after that, there were lots of people talking about customer experience in different ways. And I remember at our first meeting for the Customer Experience Professionals Association, one of the things that I stood up and really emphasized was that we have to call customer experience CX. It was a simple thing, but one of the important things for a movement, for us to all have headed in the same directions, we have to use some common vocabulary, right? If we all, at that point in time, people were calling customer experience, there was some CE for customer experience, there was some CEM, there was some CUSTEXP. And so as a simple moniker, we said, let's all just use CX. And I think that there are little things like that we've been trying to do all along to try and get us all on the same page in terms of how we view the the definition of customer experience, how we use the same language around customer experience. Because, if you look at other professional disciplines, if you look at like accountants, when you look at accounting, debits and credits mean the same idea. So I think part of what I've been trying to do is to have us use some common language, common focus, at least on the core things, so that we can all learn from each other.
So, I mean, obviously, a lot has evolved, and you've seen a lot of the changes. Are there certain junctures along the way that really stand out when the role of the CX professional changed?
Yeah, I think that for me, I would point to the evolution of the CXPA. Those were the moments where I sort of said, "Wow, this is happening." And the first meeting we had in Boston, I should say, not our first meeting, our first big
Yeah,
sort
that's
of
your big event or
the
conference, right?
yeah, the big conference,
Yeah.
the big Insight Exchange was in Boston in 2010 or 2011, and we had 80 people, and it was energized, right? But they were mostly people just trying to meet other people, right? Just trying to figure out what this thing is about. And then fast forward a few years when we had like 300 people. And instead of just people showing up to try and find out what other people were doing, we had this amazing amount of sharing. And that to me, it was probably in like 2013, um, when when we got to the point where there were enough people who were doing really good work that could now start sharing. Because up until that point, I think there were just a handful of experts, right? But
Yep.
we got to the point where I realized there were now a large number of professionals who could give other people their lessons. And once we got to that scale, that's where there was sort of a tipping point in terms of the professional side of it. On the company side, we just keep seeing more and more companies grow into the understanding that if they're going to drive long term success, they have to focus on the customer. And to focus on the customer requires a discipline around customer experience.
Yeah, I think, as I think through, it's as if so many people came into it and they'd have a narrow view. Like some people would come in saying, well, I'm the person that's in charge of surveys. And then they might attend a CXPA event and go, oh, wow, it's bigger than this. And then they get to the next level and they hear, oh gosh, I've got to really quantify this and make sure that there's a return on our investment in CX. It's bigger than what I thought. And then you start seeing CX professionals really get into, well, how do I actually design the experience proactively so that, that drives the business success? I guess as you've worked with so many CX professionals, have you seen certain qualities that stand out as being kind of the most important?
Yeah, and I think well, first of all, I love the description you have, right? And this still happens today. That I think people sometimes tend to have a very narrow view of what their role is in customer experience or what customer experience is, right? It's not about surveys alone. Ultimately, customer experience is how do we influence our organization to, in the long run, deliver better experiences. And so we've always had a big view, what I would call a big view of customer experience, right? When we look at the CX professionals who have a narrow view, helping them recognize that at the end of the day, we all succeed by making our companies do something better that ultimately drives its success in the marketplace, right? And so I think that our success is not in the tasks that we do around customer experience. Our success is in helping our organization have better brand, sort of have our organization deliver on its brand, deliver on its business objectives, and then succeed in whatever it is we want to do. So making sure that the customer experience professionals have at least a minimum understanding of, and hopefully a bigger understanding of, their connection to the business success. So really, I think if I think about what makes a customer experience professional successful, it's their understanding of how what they do will improve the success of the organization they're doing it for. because that allows them to talk in a language that leaders understand, and also allows them to prioritize their work in a way that really helps the organization do the things that it wants to do.
Yeah, I think you see different people operate from different areas, and as I was mentioning earlier, finding out how people land in CX. Really, today it's kind of all over the board. I feel like in the past it was so much focused in research and quality and so forth, but now you have people in sales operations and the channels and marketing, really taking leadership roles in CX. And you've probably had the opportunity to really work with some individuals that you had the chance to see them really flourish and evolve.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that it's interesting that we talk about the idea that customer experience is initially gets centralized in an organization, right? No, because in order to drive change across the organization, you need some sort of centralized leadership. And I've had the opportunity to work with leaders who come from all of those places, right? You mentioned a few. I've seen them. Sometimes they come from the web, online, because online has historically had a user experience design and feedback mechanisms, or they come from customer service, right? As a service organization is driving, they come the newly formed customer success, and I'm sure that Walker sees a lot of these in the B2B space, right? With newly formed customer success
That's right. Yep.
organizations, or marketing people who now have a requirement to drive. They come all over the field,
Yep.
all over the place, and I think that it's, to me, the combination of some core customer experience skills, right? And then put on top of that the need to be able to have good change management skills. And then how do we layer on ongoing support mechanisms so we continue to do the right thing? And I think there's a lot of the use of insights that come from that. And so and I'll go to the insights for a bit, because there are a lot of people who come from customer experience from a market research area, but even those people have to relearn what they do, right? Because traditional market research has been in an environment where you do a study and you report on the study, then you go on to a next study and report on a study. But in this world of customer experience, it's not about studies. It's about how do we continuously fuel an organization with insights that allow lots of people across the organization to make better, smarter decisions and act much faster than they would be able to in other environments, and even anticipate problems and opportunities with customers that they never saw in the past. So everyone who comes into customer experience ultimately has some component of strength, but they have to layer onto it. But to be really good at being a customer experience leader, we have to fill in those other gaps and fill in a bunch of other areas where we probably haven't had the background in the past.
So tell me a little bit about your next endeavor, the XM Institute. Tell us what you're trying to achieve there.
Yeah. The Qualtrics XM Institute is, I think of it as sort of the next evolution of what we were doing in Temkin Group. So at Temkin Group, I think we did a really good job of defining some best practices, helping professionals adopt them, create a language around thought leadership, and to have an entire community of business and customer experience professionals starting talking the same language and moving their businesses forward. When the opportunity came to create the Qualtrics XM Institute, we saw an opportunity to build that even bigger. So instead of talking narrowly around customer experience, we now talk more. We can focus more broadly on the entire realm of experience management. And so our goal is, how do we create thought leadership training and enablement so that professionals in the field succeed, and they succeed so well that they get more budget, succeed more well that they are looked at as being leaders inside of their organizations. And so what we want is, we want to have a thriving community of experience management professionals who are so successful that every other profession looks up to them and is envious of their work. And so we'll create tools and thought leadership that are that help companies, that help Qualtrics partners deliver things to those end customers, and help the entire community succeed. So I couldn't be any more jazzed.
Well, it will certainly be exciting to watch and be a part of that. And I'm sure you're rolling stuff out at Qualtrics' big event in March, their X4 conference, which if listeners aren't familiar with that, they should check it out because it's a big deal, an amazing experience, but lots of great content as well.
Yeah, absolutely. X4 is a big target for us to roll out a bunch of new content, new research. We're working on some training for the day before the X4 event. But yeah, if you haven't been to an X4, which is in Salt Lake City in early March, then you're missing out. And if you look at sort of we have this year, I think we have President Obama and Oprah, and I think we've announced
Sir Richard Branson.
Sir Richard Branson.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on.
Imagine Dragons will be playing. Yeah, it's really over the top. So it's an amazing experience in and of itself. So
yeah. So even in addition to those, if those people aren't enough, I'll be speaking as well.
Yes, of course. The highlights.
Yeah, I'm in the little footnote there, but we'll have this great content, and we really do build out X4 as an opportunity for you to just think outside the box about all of the experience management things, whether it's CX, EX, BX, PX, or market research. And I know Walker's going to be there, and you're probably going to have an opportunity to learn a bunch of stuff from what you guys are going to be showcasing there as well.
Yep, no doubt. Well, we are at the point in the podcast where we ask what we call the take-home value question. And that is, knowing that our listeners out there are customer experience leaders in companies, Bruce, what would be one piece of advice that you would leave them with today?
So I'm going to go off script and say something you're not expecting and talked about, which is I would urge people to really think about being mindful. Driving change in an organization is difficult. The organizations don't want to change, and successful customer experience professionals and leaders have to drive change. And so it's really easy to lose sight of your inner self because you have to stay strong, be mindful of the current time. Don't worry about the future. Don't worry about if you failed in the past. Recognize the successes you've had. Recognize your strengths. Play off of your strengths. And remember to stay positive all the time. So my call out is just be mindful. I think that serves us all very well.
I think that's excellent advice, really, for anybody in any profession, but particularly for customer experience professionals today. Thank you very much, Bruce. If people want to get a hold of you, can you provide some contact information?
Yeah, I think look for me on Twitter, B Temkin. I'm going to be continuing my blog, which is experiencematters.blog, or reach out by email, brucet@qualtrics.com. Any of those, and you'll find me.
Bruce Temkin is the head of the Qualtrics XM Institute. Bruce, thanks again for being on the podcast today.
My pleasure. It's been fun.
And if you want to talk about anything we discussed or about how Walker can help your business's customer experience initiative, you can contact Steve at steve.walker@walkerinformation.com, or you can contact me, Pat Gibbons, at pgibbons@walkerinfo.com. It's been a pleasure sitting in for Steve today. Don't forget to subscribe to the CX Leader podcast. You can go to walkerinfo.com/podcasts and you'll find links to iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and you can even listen to the podcast on our YouTube channel as well. Simply go to walkerinfo.tv to listen. Thank you for listening to the CX Leader podcast, which is a production of Walker. We're a business consulting firm that can help you make customer experience your biggest competitive advantage. Find out more at walkerinfo.com, and we'll see you next time.